Did you tell David who that was?
What?
Did you tell David?
No, I haven't.
We are on board, I think, and
Okay.
we are live streaming at Facebook, and we are recording everything all at once, except there are two people I know who were going to come on board just once today, and they haven't received the new sign information because they're not on our regular mailing list. So I'll have to slip away sometime during the discussion and see if I can get them on board. One of them is Edmund Haddad. If anybody could email him, he is at, this is his email address, Edmund, E-D-M-O-N-D, Haddad, H-A-D-D-A-D, Edmund Haddad at Verizon.net. If someone could send him the message, that would be wonderful because he wants to join us. Well, we're thankful that Norma is here representing Rescue a Child. We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Restore a child.
Pardon me?
Restore a child.
What I keep saying rescue, right? It should be restore a child. You know, and that's right. We are in the process of restoring the image of God in people.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Thank you. It's theologically right as well as organizationally right to say restore a child. Okay, so we're getting off to a rough and late start, but we still have a good time before us. So let's begin with prayer. Dear God, we've read that you're very upset when we hurt children, and that it would be better if we would be
Where?
tied to a large
Oh, is that when you have your eyes
millstone
shut? You
and
needed
dropped
to?
into the bottom of a cold, dark sea and left there. That's pretty harsh. And yet, if that's how you feel when you deal with, when you see us dealing with children harshly, how much more positively you must feel when you see people helping your children. Surely they're not thrust into the depths of the lake, but brought up into the heavenly host. Norma is one of those persons. We are thankful for her. We are thankful that she can be with us today. And we hope that we can be helpful to her as she continues to serve children without parents all around the world. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Now, let's see who's on board. I need to watch this because there are several people who wanted to say something on behalf of Norma. And let's begin with Ed Turner. Ed, would you say something about your relationship to Restore a Child?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Thanks for inviting me, David. I retired about 4 years ago, and a mutual friend who I know most of you, many of you know, especially Bill Johnson, you know him, Dr. Lynn Bartlett. We were visiting. I've known Lynn for many, many years, and he said, "Have you heard of Norma Nashed and Restore a Child?" And I said, "Lynn, I never heard of it before." I was living in Annapolis. Norma had her operation up in Silver Spring area in Beltsville. So I set an appointment, went up to meet her and knocked on the door, and here Norma came to the door in her small condominium, and she had a very small office in her house, and we got to chatting. And I was just amazed at how this one woman had done what she had done at that time, almost 20 years, all by herself, a few volunteers occasionally. And so I said, "Ed, you know, you can come out of retirement, you can help this woman." So since I do know a little bit about computers and technology, which Norma knows very little about and doesn't care to know, but,
No.
and some initial issues around communications, et cetera, I decided to help her, and I've never regretted a day of it. It's amazing, as you will see. I guess there's a video that's going to be played, David. What this woman has done in 20 years by herself, and now in 10 countries with over 4,000 children. And it's been memorialized in a great book that Bill Johnson wrote. It's going to come out in a film probably within the next year. So I'm happy to have known this woman, and I'm blessed every day to work with her.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. I think William Johnson is with us as well, and he wrote the book about Norma, and I wonder if he might be able to say something.
Yeah, sure. Norma, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you.
The
Nolene.
we go back quite a few years. We used to attend Sligo Church in Maryland, and that's where we got acquainted with Norma, and really didn't get too closely involved in her ministry until more recent years.
Mhm.
And we now live in the Loma Linda area, and Norma comes out here every year for homecoming and sets up a little booth there. And so again, we sort of met up. But I want to tell you this. I used to notice Norma walking around the streets of Loma Linda. And
Yes.
it was only after we got acquainted, and maybe when I began to work on the book, that I realized that she is so careful about saving money for the ministry. She does not rent a car when she comes out to Loma Linda. She depends on friends to meet her at the airport. She does not stay at a motel. Again, she stays with friends. Once she stayed, I think, with us, because all the monies that could be spent, what we would expect her to spend on herself, she puts it into the ministry. And so, I don't know, there's so many things about you, Norma, and the ministry, that totally amazed me. And you've inspired me so much personally.
Thank you.
By your own life, which is a life of great courage and initiative, and in the face of great hardships and difficulties and negative experiences, but you've stuck to it. You've never given up. You've persevered, and so your deep love for children just comes through over and over. When we decided that I would try to develop a book, and I've not written biography. This is the first biography I've attempted. I didn't know if I could make it work, but Norma came and stayed with us. I think every day for a week we just talked and talked, and I was just overwhelmed by the story. The story grabbed me, and I decided I just have to give this the very best I can do. And I'm so pleased it came out okay. And even now, I think it's going into what, French? Did I hear that? Spanish.
Already finished in Spanish. And
Already?
And now we're working on Korean.
Korean. And what about the movie, the film? Is that still on track?
Yes. This is, it's being produced by Rodney Vance, the chairman of the film department at La Sierra University.
Yes, I know him. I know him from many years back. So I'm so pleased to see the way this, not just the book, but the way this ministry continues to be spread, the news of it around the world, because it's a story that is so inspirational, and there's so much, so worth supporting. It's a pleasure to see you again, Norma. God bless you. You're looking great.
Getting old.
No.
You have no idea how old I am. I am older than Dave Larson.
That's saying a lot.
Yes.
You couldn't possibly be that old. All
Yes.
right. Here's something from Dr. Hart. Thank you, Bill Johnson. Thank you very much. And thank you for the book. It's a marvelous book, and we will turn to some chapters in Norma's life momentarily. But here's something from Dr. Hart, the president of Loma Linda University Health. Norma Nashed has created a unique ministry to help children in some of the most desperate situations of the world.
Mhm.
Adventist Health International and Loma Linda University find themselves in some of these same countries providing healthcare through Adventist hospitals and have been blessed with Norma's support. This has included healthcare for orphan children, nutrition services for desperate mothers and fathers, and families, I should say, not mothers and fathers, mothers and families, and agriculture and husbandry startup initiatives. Norma's passion is fueled by her own background and is an inspiration to us all. So that's another person who's been blessed by Norma's work. Let me see who else might be here by now. I'm afraid I haven't been able to get Edmund Haddad on board, but we'll keep working on that.
I talked to him, David. I called him and told him what had happened, and I forwarded the email, so I'm not sure what's happened.
Okay, so we have a chance of hearing from them yet, and when they come on, if somebody sees them, let me know so that we can hear from them right away. Well, let's begin by conversing with Nashed, and I would like to do that by, if I can pull things together here. One second. See what I'm trying to do. Okay, give me a chance, please. Okay, can you see some text there?
Yes.
This is-
Okay, these are portions of scripture that are important to Norma, and I think they should be important to us as well as we get started. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit, what is that in Arabic, Norma?
The word is not visit. In Arabic, which is from the Hebrews and Aramaic, it is iftikad. Iftikad is more than visit. It is that you miss somebody so much that you have to go and check on them and provide for them. It's a great word in Arabic.
Okay, so that word is much richer than our word visit.
No, not visit.
Somebody might think of what a synonym in English would be, where you do visit, but you do so with a sense of urgency and compassion and love and so forth. Okay. Woe to those who rob the needy of justice and to take what is right from the poor, that they may rob the fatherless. Okay. Defend the cause of the weak and fatherless and widow. Do good, seek justice, defend the orphans. Here's one that Norma says is a very weak translation, so I will read it and see how she would put it. Open your mouth for the dumb in the case of every orphan. How best to say that, Norma?
You know, in English, in the English Bible, it says, speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. So, I mean, not a big deal. This one is you speak for the dumb who cannot speak for themselves, but specifies in the case of every orphan. It's specifically about orphans.
Oh, it's not merely to speak on behalf of the speechless, but particularly those
And the
speechless
faith.
persons who are orphans,
Every orphan, yes.
much more specifically. Okay, now here is something that I think our leaders might want to consider. Interestingly, I think it would be a little alarming,
Yeah.
but the idea is that every third year, the tithe should be brought together for the sake of those who are in need. Think what that would do to our budgets if every third year. Now, there's another way to do this, and that is to take 1/3 of our budget every year.
Yes.
Instead of doing it every third year, take 1/3 of our budget every year and devote it to this cause. And I must say that I smiled when I read in Norma's book by Bill Johnson that when she approached some leaders of our church, one of them said, quote, "We don't do orphans," close
Yeah.
quote. So if we have a denomination that has at least some leaders who say, "We don't do orphans," think how the thought of spending 1/3 of our income for them. At the end of every third year,
Yes.
you shall bring out the tithe of your produce of that year. And the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow shall come and eat and be satisfied, that the Lord may bless you. Okay, here we have the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, and notice the Levite. This is
Yes.
off topic, but let me just sort of veer off the topic here a little bit. Remember, the Levites were given no inheritance in the amongst the tribe of Israel because they had acted so treacherously toward their neighbors and did a horribly mean thing. And they were told that was so awful. You will never, ever have an inheritance in Israel. And yet that curse was turned into a blessing such that they lived off of the contributions of the people of Israel. So things can turn around for us. Here's another one. Every third year, then you shall say before the Lord your God, I have removed the holy tithe from my house and have also given them to the Levite, there we go, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widows, according to all your commandments. Okay, now here are a couple from Ellen White. The fatherless are lent to Christians in trust for God. We are stewards of orphans. The Lord calls upon every member of the church to do his duty to these orphans. The Lord said to Peter, feed my lambs. And notice Norma says, this command, it is a command, is to us. And by opening our homes for the orphans, we aid in its fulfillment. That is the fulfillment of that command. Thank you for those texts, Norma.
These are just a few.
Yes,
Hey, could I just say a word?
yes.
In these texts, where you see fatherless, that word is the word translated orphans.
Yes.
That is the word for orphans, the fatherless. So
Yeah.
all those texts that mention fatherless refer to orphans.
Yes.
And how many orphans, that is amazing. How many orphans are there in the world today, Norma?
153 million orphans.
Oh,
You know, if you combine them, they can be the biggest 9th nation in the world. It's a whole nation.
And are these orphans concentrated more in some parts of the world than the others?
Well, they do have them in Asia and Africa, mostly.
Why not in South America?
Oops. Well, I don't know. I have to research that.
Yeah. Well, now you've described yourself as an orphan,
Yes.
and yet you have a biological mother, or did, and you had a biological father, and yet you've described yourself as an orphan. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I did have an absent father, but he died when he was 40 years old. He died of cancer. I was 14, so I did become an orphan. I am a real orphan. Yeah.
And your mother, you not only were an orphan, but you were a kind of a parentized child, right? You had the role of a parent in your family of origin.
Yes, because just my mom saw something in me. And so she would, confide in me, uh, entrust me with stuff that I'm not the oldest. I'm not the firstborn. Somehow God had a plan for me. And my mom was that role model that helped me to be who I am now.
Did she enjoy good health?
I mean, she was okay. She comes from a very good family, but my father was alcoholic and on drugs, womanizer. He had good education. He spoke French and English, and he had a good job with an American company, but he spent the money on himself. So we were living 9 people in one small room on the floor for 14 years, hardly enough to eat. Even the United Nations considered us as Palestinian refugees because my parents, even I was born in Palestine, but I grew up in Jordan. So we were living with the refugees, but we were not refugees, but we were so desperate. The United Nations gave my mom a card, United Nations card, so we can get some food. Even in school, I could have 2 good meals. I loved going to school and eat. I love to eat.
Now, your mother, though, had her own challenges, right? In addition, she had how many children?
7.
7, and you are 7
Number 2.
children, 1 mother, 1 father, all in one little room. Now, the father's away a lot, but
Yes.
at least there are 8 there, almost always.
Yes.
And so you're living in this very cramped quarters. And this was where? In Jordan?
Jordan, in Amman, Jordan.
I see.
But
Now, your mother worked very hard.
Yes. My mother knew how to sew. But she didn't have a sewing machine. My father worked for Singer sewing machines, but he would not give her a sewing machine. So my mom used to borrow the neighbor's sewing machine after 9 p.m. After they go to sleep, then my mom would go and do some sewing on their machine till midnight. And this is how she made some money to feed us.
Wow.
And then she became
Now,
blind.
I keep wanting you to say that she had some difficulty seeing.
Yeah, she became legally blind, but then really fully blind at age 38. A blind widow and penniless with 7 orphans. That's my mom.
My very strong woman, nevertheless.
Yeah, she became an Adventist. And, not only that, my mother is so amazing. She had only, elementary education, but she read the Quran and she would go and debate imams and judges and big people, Muslim people, and they respected her because she knew things in the Quran that they did not notice. And then she was a Bible worker. She was the community services director. She would cook for the poor every week in the church. So many things she did, in addition to all her job, feeding us and working for us.
Now, you were very helpful to her and to your siblings. Would you describe yourself as having been a compliant child?
Dr. Bill Johnson would tell you I wasn't. You know, I loved my mom. Eventually, I would do anything she would tell me to do. But I had to question. Whether her or anybody, I don't know why. I had to question why. I needed to know a reason and explanation. Then I will say, okay, but just do it because I was ordered to do it. I didn't do it. I had trouble. I had.
You're sleeping. Yeah, you're sleepy.
I was
This
amazed
is really
that-
good. It's about a woman that
One
runs
second.
17 orphanages.
Here we
across the world.
go. 1 second.
I got it, David.
Okay, thank you. Norma, I don't want to dwell on this too long, but it does seem to me that you made some of your most important decisions in life in defiance of good counsel you had been given precisely in order to establish your independence. Would that be
Yes.
fair to say?
That is right. I was, I had confidence in myself and I knew what I could do. So at least give me respect. Tell me why I have to do what you asked me to do. And that created a problem for me in the school, at home, wherever I worked with Dr. Johnson. You have no idea.
I think that's fascinating because you've channeled all that energy and independence on behalf of other people, whereas it could have been quite destructive. Now, you mentioned the Darnells. Many of us in the Loma Linda area know the Darnells, and it was fascinating for me to read about your connection with him and her and their children. And you go so far as to describe him as your father. Could you tell us about that?
Yes. You know, when the Darnells came to Jordan, I was 7 years old. And they had no children, and they took special interest in me. Maybe because I always, did the things that I shouldn't do. And they noticed this girl needs some attention. They were very nice to me and guided me and told me why I was doing, like, when we play games, I would take the ball and run away with it for no reason. Just go, I don't want to, things like childish stuff. But Dr. Darnell also, he studied psychology. He was able to talk to me and teach me and with, kindness and love in a way that I was willing to listen to him. My mother didn't see these things in the school, but I did. But the principal, yeah.
Would she have experienced you as a little independent, or is that only other people experienced you that way?
No, my mom. That's why, one time she felt like she had bleeding, from her mouth. But she didn't know, and she didn't have money to go to a doctor. So she said, she called me and she took me far away from the house. And she told me, Norma, I am going to die. I have TB, because in my family, we had several people with TB and they died. And she told me, I want you, when I die, I want you to take care of your sibling. I want you to be in charge and so on. I mean, at that time, I was maybe 12 years old. I started crying. She started crying. But after 2 weeks, she went to a doctor. She managed to go. And it turned out to be periodontal work. It's the gums. Bleeding gums. It wasn't TB. But I was happy for that.
Well, that's bad enough. That's can be very, very painful. Tell us a little bit about your education.
Oh, I didn't have much, the Darnells took me to their home when they moved to Beirut, and they wanted me to, I was in high school. So I stayed with them 6 years and then worked 2 years, 8 years. They wanted me to finish college. But after 2 years, my mom said, I cannot see, I cannot work. I need you to come and help me take care of your brothers and sisters. So I left my education and went to help my mom taking care of my siblings. I don't regret it.
So you went to work at that point?
Yeah, I was 21, yes.
And what kind of work did you go into?
I worked for the Royal Jordanian Airlines, and God provided this beautiful, it was really, I think of it now as the best position I had in my life. I worked for a Muslim, but he was so kind that he would allow me to keep Sabbath. And he was like president chairman of the airline. He was very influential man, the friend of the king. And for him to come on Sabbath and there is nobody in the office, it was hard, but people asked him, why would you allow her to take Sabbath? He said, to get somebody like Norma, I can do without assistant for 1 day a week.
Wow.
Yeah, he was amazing, man. Yeah.
What kind of work did you do there?
Just like office manager. We had, a pool of typists and filing clerks. We had like 5, 6 of them doing that kind of work. I was managing his appointments and, airline is a big business. Yes.
Now, you have met some interesting people along the way, partly there and partly when you were in Egypt. Can you tell us something about that?
My boss, his name is Ali Ghandour. In Jordan at that time, we had nobody in the aviation business. We didn't have an airline. And he was a political asylum. He had asylum in Jordan, 4 of them from Lebanon. So after a while, the king asked them what are their plans. 4 of them said, we want to go to Australia. So the king arranged for them to leave. And he told this man, Ali Ghandour, you're not leaving, you're staying here. Because he was an aeronautic engineer. And we had nobody in Jordan that was aeronautic engineer that could do the job. He told him, I want you to help me establish Jordanian Airlines. And so he stayed, and he was the founder of Jordanian Airlines, but he had founded before that 4 other airlines in other countries. He was a very, influential aviation man. And so, he was a very close friend of the king. So the king would always come to the office to see my boss. But in order to go to his office, he had to pass by my desk, my office, and then there's no other door. They have to come to my office and then go to my boss.
This is the king?
So, the king, yes.
Okay, he had to drop by your place on the way.
And the way he had to. But, I love the king so much. So I had to make him coffee. And they had the security, they all come, 3 of them around me looking, what is she doing? What is she putting in this coffee? Nothing. I told them, don't look at me. I love the king more than you. So don't worry about me. I'm not doing any harm. Anyway, but one day the king stopped by my desk when he came to see my boss. And I didn't know he knew my name, but he did. He said, Norma, what can I do for you? Like Esther the Queen. What can I do for you? I was so young. I come from a very poor family. I could not believe that a king would talk to me, even know my name. I couldn't say a thing.
And now, just to be sure we all know who you're talking about, his name was?
The late King Hussein of Jordan.
Did you know any other members of his family? I know the answer to that. How about telling us?
Yes, well, in Jordan, mostly I met the king, and his daughter was young. So they will bring her to the office. I would see her, the Princess Alia, her name. But when I went to Egypt, I became like a public relations supervisor and then later sales manager for the airline. But as a PR at the airport, my job was to meet all the dignitaries, all the heads of states, all the ambassadors, all royalty. And so because of the delays in the aircraft due to weather or whatever technical, I met his first wife, Queen Dina, many, many times. We became very good friends. And I invited her to my home and she came for dinner at my home. She's the, the first queen of Jordan. Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
God did all this, not me, not because I am something. God helped me in my life.
But I think God was able to use your spunkiness to get all this done. Yeah, that's very good. Now, I understand that Dr. Haddad has been able to join us. Let's see if we can hear from him.
Where is he? I don't see him.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you
with
for joining us.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I've been trying for the last hour. Finally, I was able to get through with the help, Bronwyn, with your numbers.
Hi, Edmund.
Hello, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I haven't seen you face to face for a while, but it's good to be at least online. So
Do you remember when you first met Norma?
the first time I met Norma, I heard about her at least 60 years ago when she was a student at Middle East College. And
how old I am.
that's quite a few years ago. And then, of course, later on, she came to Loma Linda and she was working with the Department of Social Work. So we were in the same building and it was good to see her again. But I have heard a lot. And of course, when she started with the Restore a Child, it was a wonderful experience to see her enthusiasm for what she is doing worldwide. And for, in my mind, I thought, here you have one lady who is actually working a ministry from her home that reaches out to all the way down south to Argentina, going east to the Malaysia, and then of course here in the continents where Central America or Haiti, as well as in the Middle East, so and Africa definitely. So she has been an agent for actually getting our conscience to think in terms of what she had felt when she was an orphan. And there was an angel in the person of Dr. Robert Darnell, who, while she was at home with, let's see, 5 or 6 children, and with two parents, and they were poor. And this missionary with his wife Mary came to Amman, and he was actually really helping them. He did also speak with her, knowing her independent spirit and wanting to change the world if possible. I think it was his relationship, his guiding her, that probably triggered that burning desire in her to help the helpless. And her family did need help, and he did actually help her. So that's where the last probably 10 years, I've been more connected or following what she has been doing. It's a wonderful, wonderful testimony to what one person, because she has a board that help, and they oversee her work, and they set policies, of course, but she is the dynamo. She is the dynamo behind all of this.
Yeah,
Well, thank you. You're the Arab girl from Palestine, from Ramallah originally, although you lived most of your life probably not in Ramallah, but
in Jordan.
in Amman and Beirut, and of course the US.
Yes, yes.
Norma, you're good. You're very good. God bless you.
Thank you.
You've done a wonderful job.
I must say that Dr. Haddad and later Dr. Johnson, Bill Johnson, both of them opened their homes for me when I came to visit Loma Linda, so that the money will not go on hotels, but feed the hungry children. Thank you. Thank you.
So Dr. Haddad is one of the people who's known you in both of your lives, or all of your lives, maybe not all, but several of your lives along the way. I see the White House is on. Thank you, Dr. Haddad. Thank you for persevering to be with us. The technical problems were caused by a mistake I made earlier this morning, and I apologize for that. The White Houses are here, and I think they've served in some places where Norma has served. I don't know if you folk know each other. Have your paths, have they crossed?
They are my family, my third family.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if they can say a word or not.
Well, I will describe where we first met. We were on a personal tour in our little vehicle with a baby, and we met them in Kuwait. She was a brand new mother herself, so that was 1971, and of course we've kept touch with each other since, both mainly in the US. So yes, we know Norma.
Yes, they're very kind to me, like my family.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to say something before we take a break? What I would like to do then is to take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about Restore a Child, the organization. We've had a chance to get acquainted with Norma a little bit, but we will learn much more about her when we see what she's doing now. I sent to many people last evening a long list of videos people have had a chance to look at. I have one or two more that Ed Turner has sent to me. I will try in the break to get them on. I had them set up, but because of the difficulties we've had, I don't have them right now. But during the break, I hope to get at least one of them up because it's the most recent report on what Norma has been doing. So I have 11:25 California time. So let's try to see if I can add this up correctly this week. That would mean 11:35. Am I right, Jeff? I think so. Okay. So we'll see each other in about 10 minutes.
You are correct.
Thank you, Dr. Ko. Thank you.
I can mute myself. Do you have, no, I have to do. David, do you have an idea how many people are watching?
30,
I think at this point there are,
30.
30, but that's not counting Facebook.
right, so by the time this is over, we'll have had 100 people, some on Facebook and some here. It is a little down because some people weren't able to get the second set of instructions. And that's another thing I'm going to try to do during the break, is to get some news to them.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
People came on in the last few minutes.
If they haven't already found the new email, how would they find it with you sending anything else out?
Hello again. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, can you see the video?
No. Just the title.
I'm sorry.
We can see the power of one title, but it's not playing.
Okay, let me see. I'm going to click play and let's see what happens.
Yes.
There you go. That's it.
But the sound, where is the sound?
I wanted to do something with my life other than just work for myself.
Norma represents one of those true heroes in our culture. Someone who has seen a need and without prodding or enlistment by any other force has decided to respond to that need. She was able to marshal both financial and volunteer services to join her in her commitment to satisfy the hunger and other requirements of these kids. And now this has grown into a multinational outreach.
Praise God.
It has done a good job. Poor child. We could leave your money to them.
Very, very strong. Very good video.
Thank you for that. Last night, again, I sent around a very fulsome email playlist. So it's about an hour long. Half of it is an interview of Norma. The other half consists of small clips of work she's doing in different parts of the world. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I invite you to do so. I think there are one or two more people who know Norma and her work, and I invite them to speak if they want to. This is a difficult weekend for many in Loma Linda because Dr. Larry Thomas unexpectedly died, and that has cast a cloud over the whole weekend. And so I can understand if people would rather not speak at this time. But I know, for instance, my good friend, our good friend, Iris Landa, has done much work around the world on behalf of children in her happy rooms, and always in the color of a lot of orange. So we like to see that. We'll get Iris to talk a little bit later, but this is a weekend of mourning for many people. And Iris was close to Dr. Thomas, and so I'm going to pause. Is that okay, Iris? I can see. Are you willing to do that? Or am I preventing you from saying something you'd like to?
Unmute yourself, Iris.
Okay. We'll catch up with you on, death is always difficult when we lose somebody, but when it's so unexpected, it is very, very difficult situation indeed. So, okay, let's go back to Norma. And I am not seeing Norma. Is anybody else seeing Norma?
She's there.
Okay.
She's there.
See myself.
Okay, Norma, how did you start Restore a Child? And how is that related to your illness?
Yes, I was working at the General Conference in 1998. After leaving Loma Linda, I got cancer, and I didn't wait too long to decide that I needed to give my life. I wanted to give my life to God. And so I left my job after 6 months and started ministry. At that time, I didn't have even a home, because when I left my job, I didn't have medical insurance, so I couldn't go do my treatments. I didn't have a home. I was living from my car with my few things in my car, and I would go to different friends and stay with them for a week or two and move on. It was difficult for 3 months, but God knew that, if He knew my heart, I would want to do this with all my heart. So He provided a friend from Egypt who heard about my plight. And that friend, called the GC, called friends around, where is Norma? I had no phone, I had nothing. Nobody could locate me. Finally, he located me at a pastor's home. And he talked to me and he said, Norma, if something happens to you, I will never forgive myself for not helping you. And, he's a wealthy man. Dr. Haddad knows him, Jalal Dos. And so he told me, I want you to go rent an apartment and I will cover all your expenses. I said, no problem, because before that I was living in a room with an old lady. I said, okay, I will go to somebody and rent a room in a basement. I really don't care where, what I own, what I have. He said, no, you go and rent a very nice apartment with a swimming pool. Doesn't matter how much, I will pay everything, your medical, your food, your rent, all your expenses. He said, if you don't do it, I will come from Egypt and do it for you. I knew he was serious, so I had to go. I found a beautiful apartment across from the GC, the street across from the GC. And so he paid for the rent and all my expenses. He sent me every month $3,000 for 3 years. He said, I'm willing to do it nonstop. He had no limit. But after 3 years, I felt I was good enough to work. So I told him, Jalal, you can stop helping me. I can work now. So he stopped helping me. But during this time, I didn't need $3,000 a month. I saved money. So I ended up with $15,000 in 3 years that I saved to use for my ministry. You know, it's just how it happened. You know, I started in that apartment, and God provided everything I needed.
What was your very first project?
Yes, because when I had cancer, I had not been to my country for 12 years, Jordan. I wanted to go and see my sisters, my family, and friends, just in case I don't make it. You know, I just want to say goodbye. So I went to Jordan, and I visited the school, the Adventist school that I used to clean when I was 10 years old to pay for my education. Nobody helped. You know, my mom was very poor. We couldn't pay. So I had to clean the school with my sister, and that paid for our tuition. I went there, and then at the same time, 2 children, little children, like 6, 7, were crying. And then they sent them home. I say, why did you send these kids home? They say, because they don't have money to pay for tuition. I said, what? You punish the children because the parents are poor? How can you do that? How much do you want? They said, we need $500 for each, $1,000. I said, no problem, I'll pay it. So I did. And they brought them the next day. But then I didn't stay too long then, but then on the way back, on the flight, I remember saying, well, if these 2 kids were expelled from school for poverty, I'm sure there are many more like them. I need to help them. And this is how it started. I started in Jordan, and then Egypt and Pakistan, and it grew.
So it has grown. What is your most recent project?
The most recent project, well, you know, I haven't had any real. This is Beirut. Dr. Haddad,
Yes.
the Beirut blast, you know, people, hundreds of thousands losing their home, losing everything. You know, these people are not beggars. People that had education, they had homes, they had jobs, and now on the street have nothing. How can I let them do that? I couldn't. So I started fundraising with the help of Dr. Haddad. He's from Lebanon, Beirut. And so far we sent $50,000 for distribution of food and whatever they need. We have to do more, but that's all we could do. So
what do you think was your most difficult project? The most challenging one?
Oh my goodness, my goodness. I think the one in Pakistan, and I didn't stay too long there. You know why? Because we were helping, my brother is a US diplomat. He works at the State Department. So they sent him to different countries. He was in Pakistan, in Karachi. So I asked him to help me find poor students to help. And he did, and he found a pastor that he thought I could trust. So while my brother was there, the money was given to the children to go to school. But after my brother left, after 2 years, 3 years, this pastor would not send me any receipts. What's wrong? He said, I don't have receipts. I said, what do you mean? You pay for the school money for these kids. Go to the school and get me copies of receipts. And he didn't for a few months. So I stopped helping. That was challenging. You know, to work with a pastor, do that. This is one. I have another one. Dr. Johnson knows very well. We cannot talk too much about it, but I will. Because at the beginning, I thought I will die, you know, so I didn't want to register a nonprofit. So I trusted a church, Adventist church, to handle the money and give receipts. But I did the work and did the fundraising. After a few years, we had like just, you know, of course, every year we have 300, 400,000 that goes to projects. But I had saved because as in my life, I always save. I never borrowed a penny or, was in debt. So I had saved $630,000 to be enough, to carry us through in emergencies. And all of a sudden, that money was frozen and taken by that church because they said, this is not your work and this is not your money. What? It's not my money, but it's for the orphans. Anyway, they did not want to release the money and they sued me. For what? They said, they sued me because I hijacked the pastor's website. The pastor has never been to any project. He has never seen any child. He has not donated anything. How can it be his ministry and his money? Anyway, so finally, a big firm, law firm in Washington, D.C., heard about my plot, my dilemma, and they wrote to their lawyers who would like to defend this woman pro bono. 26 top lawyers signed up to defend me. And the government told me, he's suing you, you have to have a lawyer. Well, I don't believe in suing people. I don't have a lawyer. They said, no, you've got to have a lawyer. Anyway, I don't believe, because the Bible says don't take your brother to court. And even he did that to me. I didn't want to take him to court. But these lawyers finally convinced his lawyers that he had nothing to do with the ministry. No. But they had to come to my house, take all the documents, archives, everything to show his lawyers that he did nothing. Nothing, really nothing. That year in 2010, he and his wife, who is a big nurse, donated $10. So anyway, but God let him get off my back. He dropped the case. His lawyers told him, you have no case. They had no idea that it was, I was the only one traveling. I was the only one, helping the children. I mean, that's my life. Anyway, so that was a very challenging time, but God helped me through it.
When I asked the question, I anticipated the challenges you had would be external challenges, but it sounds like the two most important ones, the two most difficult ones were really internal ones that had to do with people who were more or less a part of your team and
Yes.
then did things that weren't altogether honest. So that's a very difficult thing. Now, you had some unhappy experiences with the church and others as well. Have you had any happy ones?
Happy ones,
With the church?
The church, yeah. Because, I chose our board, mostly leaders in the church, in the GC and North American division. Why? Because I knew these people travel all the time. So they will save me money and efforts by when they travel to check on projects, take funds, take photos, help me. So those leaders were my great friends. Like we had Dr. Jonathan Contara from the Sabbath School Department. He was for 10 years, he's still on our board. And also Dr. Larry Blackmer, NAD Vice President, who's still our chairman of the board. And Jerry Karst, who was Vice President of the GC. He is on our board. And actually now he is registering Restore a Child in Canada so we will have another office in Canada. Yeah, so these are happy people who helped me and, promoted us, especially NAD, Dr. Blackmer. I started a Do Fast movement, which I didn't talk to you about it. It's a whole story. I took it from the Bible somehow when Isaiah 1:17 says, defend orphans. And I wanted something appealing to young people. So just God gave it to me. Defend orphans. And this was the first movement I started, the Do movement. But after 2 years, I had, studied more the Bible, of course, and so on, and learned that God tells us in Isaiah 58, is this the fast that I have chosen? People say, Lord, we pray, you don't answer. We fast, you don't notice. So God said, is this the fast that I have chosen? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry? And so on. And so I wanted to add the fast to the Do movement and started the Do Fast movement. And NAD, Dr. Blackmore, he was Vice President Education. He was very interested in this movement and he believed in orphans and he wanted to teach our students, the importance of orphans and what God says about orphans. And so they created, every few years, they create a new Bible curriculum for all the schools. So 2 years ago, they created a new Bible curriculum. It's entitled Encounter. It is taught in all NAD academies and school in North American division. And the Do Fast is part of the Encounter.
So
that way they help me.
Right. So it's Do, D-O, and then fast, right? F-A-S-T, Do Fast. And that's become part of the regular curriculum of our schools at the secondary level. Is that correct?
No, K to 12.
Oh. From K through 12, not just the secondary level.
No.
All 12 years or 13 years, I guess, if one includes kindergarten. Yes. All right. Now today, Restore a Child has several different kinds of endeavors, right? Several different lines of work. Could you tell us something about each of those?
Jesus told us what to do. He told us when he comes up and, at the judgment, he said he will have two groups of people, the left and the right. And he will ask them, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was naked, you clothed me. I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison. I didn't do the prison because I could not find one man to join me. I was alone. I couldn't do prison ministry alone. So, and then Jesus said, go and teach and preach. So education. So these are the 5 initiatives: food, water, medical care, healthcare, education, and then for the homeless, shelter. And so these are the 5 initiatives that we do. Because
that's amazing. I knew of the 5 initiatives and I knew of that text. I did not know that you drew your 5 initiatives from that text.
Yes.
That's remarkable.
Yes.
Now, do you give them equal emphasis or do you prioritize one or the other? How does that work?
No, we can't, because they need to eat, they need to drink. Even if we want to educate them, they have to be healthy. We provide, the health. They're all just important, all of them. And that's why Jesus mentioned them. And let me tell you also, it's not only Jesus. I was surprised when we became members of the United Nations, online volunteers, that these are the initiatives that they have, they had 168 nations sign a protocol that in 2015, they will try to eradicate hunger, disease, illiteracy, or primary education, and all the stuff that Jesus is expecting us to do. The United Nations is doing the same.
How interesting.
Yes. And so in 2015, they did a lot of good, really, but they did not fulfill these 5 initiatives. So they did another thing that's called the Millennium Sustainable Goals. The first ones were called Millennium Development Goals. They could not do it in 2015. So now they said we'll do the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. They're hoping to end hunger by 2030. With our help and your help, we can do that.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about money. You said with our help and the help of others, we can do that. Let's first of all talk about what is the that here, and then how can we be helpful?
Yes, because I have, we are feeding, we are educating, we are doing all this, but we are limited. So we appeal to people like your group and others to help us do more for Jesus. And so we have a triple matching. Somebody is willing to give us a triple match. If I can raise $100,000, we started 2 weeks ago, by December 24, then he will match 3 times. So if I raise 100,000, he will give us 300,000. So I raised so far 30,000. I need help.
Okay, all right. And you have till December 24 to raise the other 70,000.
Yes, I think maybe I can do another 20, but definitely not the 70. I need it. But
Now,
God
if you
can do it, God.
If you fall short, will he give you a triple match for as far as you get, as close as you get to 100,000?
As close.
Okay.
Yes, but I have to work hard. It's not just, I just sit back and say, oh, he's going to give me. No, I have to work hard to raise the money. And one person could give that. If that person, a friend of mine, could give the 300,000, maybe one of your group can give 100,000.
That's right, maybe.
So I'm done. Make it easy for me.
I had to smile. I said to Ed Turner, and then I said to you, well, I'm hoping that maybe our class can contribute $1,000. And your response was, did you mean $1,000 a month?
Yes.
And I thought, well, maybe we could actually do that, but that would be a bit of a stretch. So we'll start off with a more modest contribution and then perhaps grow as the years go by. Now, last night, you told Brownman and me that $45 a month would accomplish a lot. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, about child sponsorship. There was a US top economist. His name is Bruce Wydick. He's a professor of economy at the University of San Francisco. And he wrote an article in Christianity Today in June 2013. And in that article, he said, you want to change the world? This was the title. Want to change the world? ? Sponsor a child. And he was sponsoring a child, but he didn't know the impact of his sponsorship. So he asked his doctorate students who would like to follow up and go do research. 3 of his students went for 3 years and did research on these kids before and after, and what the impact on them was. He said, we economists, we don't use the word hope. Hope is not in our economy. But he said hope is a proven theory and it works. Because he has found out that 30 to 50% of these kids, when they are sponsored, they finish high school. 50 to 80% finish university. These children, he said, they become community leaders, and he used the word church leaders. These are amazing work. By sponsoring one child. See, like the Darnells, they took me to their home. They sponsored me only. They didn't know that they will be helping thousands of children around the world. when you give a child a chance, you don't know how much they can do in return. It's a ripple effect. And that's why I believe in children. Just give them a chance and they will, with the world will be a better place if we really care for children.
Give a child a chance. That's a good theme. I like that. Give a child a chance. Now, Norma, I have asked you many questions. Do you have any questions in mind that I should have asked you, but I didn't?
I want to talk a little bit about the president of World Vision. I'm sure you have heard about World Vision. They have sponsored, or they do now sponsor 1 million children. We sponsor maybe 5 children. We help many children, but we don't have sponsorship because it requires a full-time person, paid person to do the job. I couldn't find volunteers to do it. So we don't have a sponsorship program. But World Vision, the president, his name is Richard Stern. In 2009, he spoke to 1,000 corporate leaders in Washington, D.C. It was a convention about how to end poverty and hunger in the world. And he told them, we Christians, we're supposed to take the whole gospel to the world, but we have a hole in our gospel. He has a book called Hole in Our Gospel. And you can buy some of them used for $4 on Amazon, that book. And he said that they did research at World Vision and found out that in the US alone, not the world, he found out that 98% of Christians give 2.5% only to the needs of the church, and 98% is spent here in America. So the grinding poverty of these countries in the world, how much do they get? They get 2% out of 100, because 98 stays here to build bigger churches and, acoustics and all this technology. But how much goes to the poverty, with the poor people? 2%. And he said that 2% helps 2.5 billion people. So how much is the 2% giving per Christian per day? 6 cents. That's all what Americans give to the poor. 6 cents a day. He said, consider that the 7.5% of missing tithe, because the Christians pay only 2.5, whether tithe or offering. He is saying, if the 7.5% missing tithe is given to the church, that amounts to $168 billion a year. And that will eradicate hunger in all the world. There will be not one person hungry in the world, if only the Christians do their part.
Wow. Anything else? That's very impressive.
Yes. So
what do you have there on your desk that you'd like to share with us?
Well, the orphans, people look at them, like neglected. They amount to nothing. But many world leaders are orphans. There are today, Ed printed 26 pages of names of leaders who were orphans. Among them is Johann Sebastian Bach. He was an orphan. Among them is the Andrew Jackson, the 7th president of the United States. Another president, Hubert Hoover. He was the 31st president of the United States. He's an orphan. And then Steve Jobs, Apple, the president and owner, he's an orphan. You know, the Pharaoh, King Tut, he was an orphan. Nelson Mandela is an orphan. Norma Nashed is an orphan. My name, I'm not a world leader, but you know, there are hundreds of them. Amazing how when they're given a chance, what they would become.
That's impressive. I like that Norma's name is in that list. That's very good. Very good. Now, Nelson Mandela and Norma Nashed. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Now, Brahman, you might have a question or two, or do you?
Brahman?
Let me see.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Norma, thank you. This has been fascinating. I've just finished reading your book twice. Once wasn't enough.
Because of Bill Johnson.
Yeah, my question is, you've told us about some of the things that you've been doing and are doing. Is there anything yet that you have wanted to do that you haven't yet realized?
Yes, I want to help feed. I want to help more than feeding, but at least I want to feed 100,000 children.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this year, because one Jewish man, he gave us, we started a campaign for goats. And goat herding has become very popular in Africa because women now have a job. The women have nothing to do. But when they have goats, then, you know, the goats produce twice a year. So if we give 1 or 2 goats to a family, next year they'll have maybe 4 or 6. And then they keep multiplying.
Mm-hmm.
So that the women can do business and then they can sell some of them and then buy food other than milk, you know. Now they have the milk, but they need food. And then they need to pay for their education for their kids because education is not free in Africa and around the world. It's sad, but it is not. So most of them don't go to school. So, through this goat, one Jewish man called me and he said, Norma, I see you are doing goats. So how many do you need? Do you want? I said, I want 1,000 goats to start with. He said, Norma, well, I think I can do 600 for you.
Mm.
So he donated for 600 goats.
Wow.
Then, yes. Then after 2 days, he called me. He said, Norma, how are you doing with the fundraising? I said, I got 4. 4 only. So he said, don't worry, I will do the 1,000 goats. So he sent us $43,000 for the goats.
Mm.
And he's a Jewish man. And this is one thing I didn't talk about, and that is how did I meet Dr. Mitchell Davis? He's a Jewish man. It was during 2007 when I was in Ethiopia building the first orphanage for orphans. And my building was consumed by fire, and I lost everything, my home and my office, everything. So because it was a big fire, there were more than 43 firefighters all day battling the flames. Half of the building collapsed. So Fox News, NBC, what do you call it, ABC, all these big TVs came, they Googled the address and found there is a charity, they call it. I call it ministry. So they emailed me. They said, your home is on fire. Your charity is on fire. We want to interview you. What? I had just arrived that day in Ethiopia. So I wrote to them, you know, I just arrived in Ethiopia. So what can I do? They said, okay, go to our website. You will see your house in flames. Oh my God. You know, when I got cancer, I didn't cry. I didn't care. I knew God was doing it for something good. But when I had the fire, my goodness, why? Why? Losing everything. I cried almost all night. I cried in Ethiopia. So because after I saw my computer flying through the window, my furniture, it was scary. But all these TVs, covered the fire and restore a child. But but I wasn't there to interview me. So they kept track with the people who knew me to find out when I was coming back. And the day I was coming back, coming from Africa, I was dirty, I was tired, I looked ugly. And here I was in the airport and all these lights and, four or five TVs there with their crew. I said, that's nice. I will see a nice celebrity. And they were all focusing on me. I said, what? Why? I had no idea. So all of them came to the airport to meet me, and they followed us to my home to see what will I do when I see the home gone, everything gone. And they, shared it on their networks. So Dr. Davis, the Jewish man, saw me on Fox 5 News. And he said, I don't usually watch. He was doing, at that time, they had these DVDs, not DVDs, whatever, what do you call them? What do you call it? What do you call anyway, he was fixing something to watch. And he saw me for a few minutes only. And he called Fox News. He said, I am a Jewish man. I want to help this Arab woman. And so they gave him my son's address. And when I came back, he said, Norma, let Norma call me. So when I called him, he said, Norma, what do you need? I said, I just need a computer and a printer, basic things so I can do my ministry because I lost everything. He said, what about jewelry? He said, I know women like jewelry. I'll be happy to buy you some. I said, no, I don't wear jewelry. So he said, okay. And then anyway, in the next few years, he gave us $350,000, a Jewish man. And he's the same one who called me 2 weeks ago and paid for 1,000 goats to feed the children in Africa. So now we are feeding like 10,000 children in different countries.
Wow. Bronwyn, do you have another question?
Yeah. What year was that your apartment burned down?
2007.
Okay. Thank you. And so he's been helping you since 2007, the Jewish doctor.
Yes. He has been, I don't ask him anymore because he is generous. So whenever he said, whenever I sell some of my stocks, the money will go to you. So automatically, I know when he has money, he will send. He's amazing, man. Yes.
Thank you.
We have some more time. Does anybody else want to ask Norma a question or to make a comment?
McKinley does.
Yes, McKinley.
Hello and happy Sabbath, Sister Norma, if you don't mind me saying that.
Yes, no, it's not. I want
you
to
don't
see
know me. Yeah, you don't know me. You don't know me, and I don't have a picture to show. There's a reason for that, but
yes, it's okay.
Thank you for your incredible work. It shows the power of God working through one person.
It's God. Yes.
I had not heard about you nor your ministry before.
No.
So I want to thank Dr. Larson and the Branson Sabbath School class for hosting you. And I'm pleased to know that Bronwyn has read your book.
Quite.
So Bronwyn, if it is okay with you, I would like to follow up with you and Dr. Larson about Norman's fundraising challenge. And I also would like to understand a little bit more about the match requirements. Now, here's my question for you, Norman.
Okay.
Let's see here.
You know what? Dr. Edmund Haddad has a few copies of my book. So maybe you can get one copy for you or anybody in this group. They can get a complimentary copy because you're going to be my donors in the future.
Here's my quick question. When you think about the future of Restore Child, what does the future look like? And what resources do you expect might be available to support that work?
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
know, yes, thank you. The Jewish man, he called me yesterday. He said, Norma, I'm willing to give you next year $100,000 for an endowment, if you start an endowment fund. And I will triple it in 2 years. And he said, you can use only 5% of it. So it will keep growing. And you know, there are other peoples of his friends, and maybe a friend of mine or two, who might be willing to donate to the endowment, which stays, you know, as security for the future. So there will always be money to run after I'm gone. So, but now our chairman has called a lawyer, and we are trying to find how to register an endowment. And then God will do the rest.
That's a whole nother step, isn't it? To create an endowment, because that means the Restore a Child endeavor has a longer life. And I think of what's an institution, what's an organization? It's a gathering, it's a structure that will outlive those who founded it. Yes. That's the important point. Outlive those who founded it, and an endowment is a very, very good way to do that. So that's a whole another step in the direction that you're moving.
Yes, and then also for you know, the future of Restore a Child, I had to plan what do you call it, succession?
Yes.
Because I die tomorrow. Who's going to take over? I already have somebody who is, you know, much younger than me. He's around 50. And he is the one who's going to give us the triple match. He gives us every year 100,000 to 150,000 every year. So, but because he is wealthy, he is kind, he's an Adventist, he loves the poor, and he has money. So if he becomes the president, he won't take any money. I asked him maybe 10 years ago, would you please take it over when I'm done, when I'm gone? He said, I will be happy to do that. So we have some plan.
Does anybody else have a question or comment? Thank you, McKinley.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go. When I became interested in the possibility of writing this book on Norma and her ministry, I was very concerned about the money question, because so often when money and religion come together, some unfortunate things happen. Mm-hmm. And it is a fact that of all the many, many charities out there, many of them send a very small percentage to the actual work of the charity. So I was concerned very much about that question. And so I investigated this and of course talked with Norma, and I was amazed about the money question. In the case of Restore a Child, it is unbelievable. This is a charity that basically has no expenses. Norma, I don't know where you are now, but for years and years, she didn't draw a penny from what is raised.
Yeah, for 20 years. No?
Yeah, so it's just an amazing ministry. It is all about the ministry. It is not about Norma.
No.
So I just want to mention that because, you know, as I said, I started out somewhat skeptical because, you know, stuff happens, money and religion, some bad things happen.
Follow the money.
I have 100% confidence. The board she has are all people of integrity, everything is accounted for. But, you know, along the way, some bad things happened with money very early, and she referred to it briefly, and I wanted to put more in the book. But the attorney said, don't go there, because the particular person involved, who is a pastor, unfortunately, maybe I shouldn't have said that anyway.
Yeah, it's okay.
Has been involved in many lawsuits. At one point, I was actually named in a different situation, eventually withdrew that. So, so I wanted to put some more of that in the book. The attorney said, don't go there. And but that had to have been one of the hardest things Norma faced just starting out this ministry. She raised this $600,000 plus, and then it's taken.
Yeah,
Well,
but anyhow, yeah, God has helped me. You know, I had some of my own money, not very much. I gave all my savings and all my retirement fund, and I don't have a husband to take care of me. How did I do it? I don't know. God, he said, why do you worry what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear? I take care of the birds and the lilies. I will take care of you. I really trusted, you know, not that I'm lazy. I work very hard, but the money goes to the children. They are hungry, they are starving. And I take money from there. I couldn't, but God provided for me for 20 years. Now I take some, the last 2 years. You know, the board has approved 5 times for me to take some money, and I refused to take no stipend, no salary for 20 years. But God provided. And this same Jewish man, I didn't have medical insurance. He paid my medical insurance. He paid for my dental for 13 years. He paid $20,000 for my teeth. So I have nice teeth now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that 100% of donations go to children. We don't take 1 penny of your donations. It all goes to children. And the reason is because that friend of ours and now another friend, they cover the limited overhead. They pay for everything. So we don't take any money from the donors. It all goes to children. And
Good.
that's very unique.
We're almost to the end, so I'd like to give someone who hasn't had a chance to speak to do so.
Hello.
Yes. Dr. Haddad.
Okay, I'd like to really end up this thing with a tribute to this lady who has done, I think, more than anybody else can do in her lifetime, in her willingness to set completely self aside and dedicate herself to helping the kids. God bless you, Norma. You're a wonderful lady.
Thank you.
Is somebody going to say something?
I have a question, David.
This is Judy Whitehouse.
Okay, we have Bud Racine and then we have Judy Whitehouse. Bud?
I would like to talk with Norma personally. How do we get in touch with her?
Okay. We have 2 things, my phone and my email. My email is my name, Norma at restoreachild.org. Norma at restoreachild.org. My phone number is 24.
No, let's not do that. Let's keep your phone number private, okay? Is that okay with you? Let's use the email.
Then I can give you my phone number in the email.
That's a better way, yeah, because we don't want everybody in the world to know.
No, yeah, because it's on Facebook. No, okay.
That's right.
Let
Okay.
me repeat that email then, if I may, David.
Sure.
I think she said Norma at restoreachild.org. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll put it on chat. I'll write it on chat.
I have a question to everybody through Dr. Larson. Would you give Dr. Larson permission to share your emails with me? All those on this Zoom. So
Okay,
what we are doing. I mean, just once a
well,
month.
two things about that. One, I don't have email. Well, no, I guess I do. I do have emails for everybody, but I would have to get individual permission because I cannot send those emails out to anybody without their permission. But I'm happy to do so if someone sends that to me.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
The people that are watching your Branson Legacy Sabbath School can write to her directly if they're interested in her getting our emails.
Yes, yes.
So
then
that's one way to do it.
I think that's very efficient and effective. Thank you, Bud. That's the best way.
And I just put it on chat.
Good.
Okay, Judy Whitehouse was going to say something.
Yes. Where is she
I
now?
just want to say thank you, Norma. Thank you, Norma, for always giving the glory to God. That is impressive.
Yes, yes.
I
love South Sudan. I'm helping them so much. We are now building a vocational training school for them. And you know, Gerald Whitehouse and Judy, they served in South Sudan. And they have 2 girls they have adopted from South Sudan. So I know it means a lot for them.
And another son that we didn't officially adopt is the head person for the church in the entire country. And he is regularly in touch with Norma and tells me about the work there. So we praise God.
Yes, I work with him, yes.
Thank you,
I want
Judy.
to thank everybody.
Okay.
Thank everybody who have signed into Zoom. And please, you can pray for us and you can share our ministry, please. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Here's the benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Bye.
Bye, everybody. When you come to Florida, come to see me. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Norma. We worked you very hard.
Thank you.
So maybe you can get a Sabbath rest now.
Yeah, no, you didn't work me hard. It's a pleasure for me to talk about the children and their needs. That's what I do every day.
Very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Norma, I'm Carla Trenchik. I'm the violin professor at Andrews University. And I was wondering if you would stay on a minute longer. I have some questions for you.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Carla. I'm sorry for the technical problems we had earlier getting you on, but I'm glad you found us at long last.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sending additional email. I was able to log in.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Hi, Iris.
So the rest of us will sign off as soon as it's comfortable, and we'll have Norma and Carla continue the conversation. Is that okay with everybody?
David, you need to stay there so you don't cut them off too.
Yeah, stay there.
Okay. Well, I don't have, I can put mute on and I can leave, but I won't turn it off.
You can also change hosts, I believe. So you could turn it over to Norma.
Okay. Well, that may be more than I can handle, Carla. I think I'll go get something to drink and you folk can talk.
Okay. That sounds good. Norma, I'm so glad to learn about you. The timing of it is very interesting. I got the email Thursday night about all the different Sabbath schools that are available, and I look forward to reading your book. And I don't know if you talked about this before I got on, but I'm very interested in knowing what you're doing with orphans in Ukraine and with Ukrainian heritage myself. Just within the past couple of weeks, I have done some preliminary exploration as to what I can do from an educational standpoint for orphans in Ukraine. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your work in Ukraine.
Yes, my work, although the focus is on orphans, but really the majority is poor children. So, but we do, we have like 500 orphans, but we now feed 10,000, but they're not all orphans. Many of them are. Even in Maasai land, we gave them 150 goats for the women. 113 women were widows. Can you believe how many orphans there are in the Maasai land? In Ukraine, we started like 6-7 years ago, just supporting with the school fees, medical, because they are really poor there, especially on the east side in Kharkov, near the Russian border because of the war with Russia. So I visited the, the refugee camp there. And there are some orphans, but even if they are not orphans, they are very, very poor. But many of them are orphans because their fathers died in the war. So, but also in Ukraine, it is Russian Orthodox is very strong, and they don't really like Protestants, they don't like Adventists, and the government is really giving hard time for these people. So, because I am not only concerned with the physical needs, I'm also concerned with their spiritual needs. So we teach, and that's a big distinction between us and ADRA. My son is chief accountant of ADRA. My nephew, my sister's son, he is vice president of ADRA International. So, I'm involved in ADRA and so on. I love ADRA, I don't mind. However, because they take government funding, they cannot preach or teach or pray. The president told me we cannot do that. Well, then what about the Red Cross? What about the Muslims? What about the Catholics? They all do the same humanitarian work. As Adventists, what is the difference between us and them? We need, I believe, that, preaching, not sharing the gospel is very important. So we do that. And we have baptized so far our children. We take them like maybe 1 year old, 2, 3, and so on. It takes a long time for them to be young people, to be ready for baptism. So, but we have baptized more than 300 young people in Indonesia, Congo, different countries. South Sudan, 46 last year, because we buy Bibles and we give them. Because how can they have Bible study if they don't have Bibles? We are very, intentional about our spiritual work. And so in Ukraine, because we cannot reach the people easily through churches and, evangelism, the best way is through education, through schools. So we have built, we will be finishing them this year, 4 schools. One in Kharkov, one in Bucha, one in Lviv. Lviv, we couldn't build, but it was not big enough, and they have top quality education, really, so good. So, but they had a building next to them, very big building. So we helped them buy, together with the conference, we bought that building so they can expand. So I say this is the 3rd school. The 4th one is an amazing, in the Carpathia Mountains. It is one of the Adventists there that is, he's a businessman, but he's very generous. So he bought the land, he built a school, not very big at the beginning, until I went there in 2018. And I said, we can do more than that, because we can reach more people from the Ukraine. So now they are building, actually they have built 3 floors. The 3rd floor is a boarding school to attract young people and children from all over Ukraine. It's amazing job. What a quality. You know, they have for early childhood, they have even rooms and cribs so that after feeding, they put the children to sleep, to take a nap. I mean, the quality of education and the music, and it's amazing. We will finish. I think we have a video that I can send you, you know, a link to, and they are all on YouTube. We have more than 20 videos there, but the Ukraine one is great. It's a great one. So that's what we do in the Ukraine, because through education, we not only educate them, we can reach the parents with the gospel. That's what.
That's excellent. Yeah, I would, you know, at some point like to tell you some of my ideas that I would like to pursue, and I don't know if there is a possibility for collaboration, but just I will be reading more about what you're doing, and perhaps we can be in touch again.
Yeah, thank you very much, and don't forget to share our ministry with others.
I will.
Because we grow by word of mouth, honestly. You know, the last 20 years, you know how many donors I have? 150. We grow by 10 donors a year because we don't spend money on advertising and all this stuff. It all goes to children. So it's by word of mouth. And this is how we're growing. That's all.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
I've got one clarifying question, if you don't mind. I don't know if I don't know your name, who was asking the question, but if you're done, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please go ahead. I'm Carla.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Sister Norma, I'd like to understand a little bit more about the match, the $300,000 matching, I guess, commitment. Is that a one-time matching commitment, or is it over a period of time? I mean, is that person going to give the $300,000 at one time, or over a year, or over 2 years?
No. At one time.
At one time.
He already gave us 100,000. He still has to give us 200,000 when you know, for the matching. But he's very generous man, but he wants to help us because, you know, he's able. Others are not able to do that. So yeah, that's what he is an amazing guy, and he's the one who accepted to lead this ministry.
Right. So one of the things that would be good to understand is, I don't know, you can clarify this with him, and when Dr. Larson and Bronwyn and I talk.
Yes.
If a donor were to commit to the whole $70,000, but it was over time, would that satisfy his requirement?
You know, I decide on that. However, how long over time?
Yeah. Okay.
You don't want to drag it too long.
Right. So let's say, for example, if a donor were to say, you know, we would commit the $70,000 to match your 30,000 so that you have your 100,000. Yes. So that this person can fulfill their $300,000 commitment. Yes. What's the longest you might want to go with that $70,000?
I need to know the ability of the person. I don't want to too harsh or too greedy, but really we need the money also. Right.
Okay, that's good to that's good to understand. So maybe think about it, Jermaine. You say if you could go up to 2 years, where you got $35,000 up front.
Yes.
And then the other $35,000, you know, within a year or so. Would that? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
That's fine.
So think about it, and I will speak with Dr. You already.
I love that.
Okay. Well, that's good information to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Are you from what country? India?
No.
Originally,
so,
you're American now. I'm American, but
understood.
From Jordan.
Right. Well, so there's a family heritage from the Netherlands, but my family were also in the diplomatic corps, and so we lived across a lot of places, including in West Africa as well. So my dad worked for the U.S. Agency for International Development.
AID, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So your work is very interesting to me, and your childhood experience, very touching. In fact, I was tearing up as you spoke, and I think God has blessed you in a very powerful way. So I will be in touch with the Larsons, and then we'll have a follow-up.
Thank you very much. You know, I spoke 3 times at the World Bank.
Okay.
There are things I didn't mention today, but when I spoke, all the people were in tears, even the men. Because I have things I didn't say, really sad what happened to me. But God is good. I'm happy now.
Yes.
Serving. And thank you very much for your generosity. And tell others about us, please. Tell us.
Yes. Okay.
Write to me.
Yes, I will email you after I speak with Dr. Larson and Bronwyn.
Yes.
I'll follow up. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing your story, and God bless you. And I'll include your ministry in my prayers, because as I said, I had never heard about you before, never heard about Restore a Child. So this was a good Sabbath presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath to you. We still have one person left. Edwin, are you waiting for me to end, sir? He is not, he is muted. Well, when Dr. Larson comes.
I have a question. I really appreciated the inspiring presentation, but it seemed like there might be a whole story behind how you got over cancer and you didn't have any help, and that seemed like another way that God worked for you.
Yeah, you know, I had started taking, my cancer was special, and there was only one place in Maryland that treated my cancer. But my cancer was not like the others. I think it wasn't as dangerous. So I did not take chemotherapy. I took photochemotherapy and radiation. So, of course, I got like nauseous and so on. I was working at the GC, but I did not lose my hair. And the photochemo is made of plants, and they are found only in Egypt, that kind of plant. And Dr. Zawahiri from Egypt is the one who discovered it. So, but after 6 months of the treatments, and I decided to leave my job, then I lost, medical insurance, and I couldn't go back. But my friend who knew, God can heal, and through natural methods, God can heal me. And I believe that, honestly. And so through, being home, I didn't have to work. I had the ministry, but it was just starting. So it wasn't hard work like now, 15 hours a day, before maybe 3-4 hours. So I would go to the park, I would exercise, I would spend time in the sun, I would do juicing and all the natural ways. And that strengthened my immune system, and I could fight the disease. After 3 years, I was fine.
Wow, that's really inspiring. There was also the precedent of this other doctor that had terminal cancer, and she used juicing. So maybe I was wondering, maybe you probably learned something from that. I don't know how much of a factor that is.
I really don't know, because I still also believe in God's will. Why he would allow some people to heal and some of them not to heal. He has a plan. God has a plan for our lives. And the reason, good reason, he said, all things work together for good that love God. and are called according to his purposes. So I believe God knew, my heart and what I wanted to do to serve him all these years. Maybe he chose to help me get over it. I don't know.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you give credit to God, because that's where everything comes from.
Yeah, not from anything I did. God has a plan, and I'm ready to accept any plan, anything he's willing to do to help me, in my life. I'm more than grateful, because I know, when things like are hard and dark in my face, I always say, all things work together for good. God has a good purpose. His plans for us are good plans. So he will not send us something bad. But if he does allow them, it is for our good.